In keeping with the theme of Starfield, the first 40 hours of this video will be pretty boring and uneventful, but if you stick with me, by hour 50, it promises to be somewhat mediocre. So here we are in 2023, and let me tell you, something that was not on my bingo card for the year was making a video about both Starfield and Cyberpunk2077. Both games were highly anticipated both by myself and the gaming community, and both seem to have one thing in common. Their initial launch was not exactly delivering on what fans were hoping for. But we're going to tackle these two monstrosities one at a time, so let's get into the newest release first, Starfield. I don't know about you guys, chat, but when I walk by a table and I see a sandwich with a bite out of it, I take it and put it in my pocket too. Starfield is the latest game by developer Bethesda, who are infamous for both the Elder Scrolls series and some of the latter Fallout games, such as Fallout 3, 4, and the infamous Fallout 76. Before we get too into it, one thing I do want to make clear for full transparency purposes, my copy of Starfield was provided to me by Bethesda. I had an early access edition with the super ultimate go out and be a Skywalker edition, whatever it was called. So while the game was provided to me by Bethesda specifically, I was not required to make a review. I was not required to say this, that about the game, nor was I paid to play the game or make content for it. The game was provided, and that's where the deal ended. To give a bit of backstory about me, I am a longtime Bethesda fan, dating all the way back to Oblivion when it launched in, I believe, 2007. That was the first Bethesda game I've ever played, and my 2007 brain was blown. I remember walking out of that sewer for the first time after you get through, I think it's like a half hour to 1 hour tutorial, walking outside and just looking around at all the different locations. I can even see it now as I'm making this video in my head. All the different locations. I remember mountains being off in the distance. I remember there being a river with some stone thing right across, and I could see people around there, and I just knew that the possibilities were endless on what I wanted to do. And within that first hour, I was instantly hooked on the game, to the point where I ended up playing it for 150 hours before I somewhat started to get bored. And if you ask any longtime Elder Scrolls or Bethesda fan, honestly, 150 hours isn't even really all that much. The same thing happened with Fallout 3 and Skyrim and Fallout 4 even. I was immediately hooked within the first hour. I wanted to explore the world. I wanted to meet all the characters. I wanted to complete all the quests. I wanted to loot all the loot. I didn't want to put my controller down. Even Fallout 76, like, listen, I know it's improved a lot over the years, and you can say good things about it now. People can make arguments for it. I know some people love it, and that's cool. When it launched, again, like Starfield and Cyberpunk, not necessarily the strongest launch, but even I played it for, I want to say, maybe 30 hours before I kind of moved on from the game. And once again, I just wanted to go off and explore and see what new adventures Bethesda had cooked up for us. So I am a longtime fan of the Bethesda games, which is why I think it makes me even sadder to say that Starfield just did not capture that same magic for me. Right away, one of the first things I noticed when I started playing Starfield was how dated everything just felt. It genuinely feels like the game is 20 years too late. If this was the follow-up to Oblivion in, say, 2009, 2010, I don't think my brain would have been able to handle it. I would have thought it was like the new greatest game to ever exist in the whole history of the video games. But it just feels like a relic of the past. The combat feels extremely clunky. The menus are a whole other thing, which we will get into in a bit in this video. They don't feel natural to navigate. They seem kind of messy. A lot of the important information that you would want when trying to quickly sort through all the loot that you gain in these games just is not there. The graphics, while sure you can argue that they've been improving with each game, it still feels like it's from the days of yore. Conversations with NPCs still feel just kind of lifeless. You've got, you're trying to talk to someone, and this is the only thing that you are seeing on your screen, and they will not blink.
You are back. You did not respond when I called to you after you pulled out the artifact. Does that mean Barrett's theory and experience were correct? The artifact grants the first person who touches it a vision?
It's just not a very natural way for two characters to have a conversation in 2023. The unfortunate thing about the menus being so kind of clunky is, weirdly enough, in this game, you are going to spend the majority of your time navigating through menus. Gone is walking out of a sewer or a dungeon where a dragon just attacked you, or escaping a vault and wondering which direction you want to go off next. Instead, you want to travel to another planet. You can't get in your spaceship and just fly. You can't just go off into space and find X planet, Y planet, Z planet, Captain Planet. None of those are there. There are planets that you go to, but the way you get there is essentially fast traveling through your menus. And in order to find those planets, you have to go through a menu, into a menu, into a menu, into, I believe, a fourth menu. Maybe I might have the numbers a little bit off there, but it's that concept of just menu, menu, menu to get to that planet. And then once you eventually do get to that planet, it's kind of limited. You have probably a main city area or a main area where you land. Maybe you have a quest there in some sort of settlement, tower, base, whatever. But while you can walk around the outskirts of the planet, there's not a whole lot that is there. I think on one of the planets I was roaming around, I just walked and walked and walked, I want to say for 20-25 minutes. I found a random ship that was crashed and destroyed that I think had one little crate of loot in it, nothing significant. And then I got attacked by some bounty hunters, I believe, and they had a really cool ship, and I wanted to steal it once I murdified them, but unfortunately I guess you need a certain perk in order to steal that class of a ship, because it was a really big one. So walking around for a half hour on this planet left me with nothing. There was no gain from it. There was no reward. There was no fun little discovery. Now, some people in the comments might tell me that some planets have that, and if so, cool, great, super duper neat. But just that mystery feeling, that sense of wonder, that sense of wanting to just pick a random direction and walk off and find whatever it is I find, for me, is just not present in this game, which to me is such a massive staple of the Bethesda games. On top of that, the story hasn't really pulled me in either. When I played Oblivion and the king was murdered, and they were like, okay, we're being attacked by the devil people. We need you to close those Oblivion gates so the devil people will leave us alone. And you're the only one that can help us. Help us, Obi-Wan Kenobi. You're our only hope. And I was like, okay, I will help you. I'm in. I'm hooked. 150 hours later, I think I did it. I even remember farming Chameleon. I think it was Chameleon of the Oblivion sigils, is it, that you get at the end of closing the gates, so I could have 125 or 133% Chameleon. I forget the exact number, but basically I was completely invisible, and if I walked up to a guard and punched them in the face, they wouldn't react because Chameleon is so much more gooder than invisibility. That stuff was awesome. I loved it. That's not nothing to do with story. I just got completely sidetracked. God, I loved Oblivion. But in this one, you're a miner, and then you find an artifact, and then you meet these people, the new constellations, whatever their name is. They're kind of boring. A lot of the characters in this game just did not do anything for me at all, except the adoring fan who, hilariously enough, is from Oblivion.
Yes. Oh, great and mighty Grand Champion, is there something you need? Can I carry your weapon? Shine your boots? Back rub, perhaps?
Now, I am told that the game gets quote-unquote better when you get further into it or when you get into New Game Plus. But here's my thing. With Bethesda, I was always hooked within the first hour. I don't believe that having to play a game for 40 to 50 hours before it gets good is a pro. That's not a selling point. A game should have you hooked within the first couple hours, I'll say, especially when it requires a big playtime commitment like Bethesda games typically do. Now, minor spoiler, I guess, at some point in the story near the end, you get powers, which cool. That might, I think I saw like a quick screenshot or video clip of it. I think you get some sort of like power or ability. Obviously, I didn't get that far. I kept trying to force myself to play this game, and I just could not get into it and play it for more than a few hours at a time. But again, I don't believe a game should require 50 hours or have to wait for its second playthrough to get good. That's not a selling point to me. Furthermore, the game is just not optimized very well or at all. My computer is 2.5 years old. Funny enough, I originally got this brand new computer for Cyberpunk 2077, which again, we'll talk about in a few minutes. It has a Ryzen 7 5900X, I believe is the correct one, a 32 gigabytes RAM, an M2 hard drive, and a GTX 3080. Now, obviously, 2.5 years old, it's a little outdated, but it's not like I'm playing the original Mac from 1980 or 90, whatever. Even games like Baldur's Gate 3 that came out earlier this year, in August, I believe, runs, I'll say 97% of the time, flawlessly at 1440p ultra goody settings. New games still run fantastic on this computer, but with Starfield, I was lucky to get 40 to 50 frames per second, and that's even after lowering different quality settings down to try and find some frame rates everywhere. Now, of course, we all know about the DLSS mods that have come out, which once I found one that actually worked, I got my frames to about 60 to 70 depending on where I was, which is absolutely playable. If you can hit 60 frames a second, great. I have 165 hertz monitor, so if I can get it 165, that's fantastic, but 60 is still absolutely playable. But the fact that you need the modders to add in a basic feature for a Bethesda game, while 20 years ago might have been cute and funny, in 2023 I just find it tiring. And that's a good point to bring up here. A lot of the things that I have talked about in this video, like the menus, for example, are all fixed with the community made mods. There are some mods out there that give you all the information, all the sorting options for all the items, and they're great and they made them better. But I just feel like in 2023, Bethesda, I love you, but the excuse that the community will fix it just doesn't work for me anymore. I found it amusing that there was a clip where Todd Howard was criticized for people saying their computers couldn't run Starfield, and he said, well, people should just upgrade their computer.
Why did you not optimize this game for PC?
We did. It's running great. It is a next-gen PC game. We really do push the technology, so you may need to upgrade your PC for this game, but it's got a lot of great stuff going on in it, and the fans are responding awesome.
The irony being that they are still using an engine that dates back as far as when we used to say that graphics will never get any better than this. Maybe it's not that we need to upgrade our PCs. Maybe it's just time to upgrade that 33,000-year-old engine you're still using. There's so much creativity at Bethesda. I genuinely feel that they have a team that want to make fantastic games that push the boundaries, but in my obviously uneducated opinion, I'm not a game dev, but still using this same engine just feels like it's just going to keep holding them back, which has me worried for the Elder Scrolls 6, a game I'm still gonna hold false optimism that is gonna come out and blow us all under the water in 2074. But until then, after Starfield, I'm just worried. Please make Elder Scrolls 6 good. We're ready. We just want a good Elder Scrolls game. New engine, please. More gooder. Fix it. Please. 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 Hey, look, it's a kitty cat. Now let's talk about Cyberpunk 2077. And now we're on to the unexpected Cinderella story of 2023, which is CD Projekt Red's Cyberpunk 2077. Cyberpunk right now is kind of having its own No Man's Sky moment, where when it originally launched, it was not the game that we were hoping for, but through love, care and sweet, sweet tenderness, CD Projekt Red has turned it around to be the game that everybody wanted back in 2020. For those who don't remember, when Cyberpunk 2077 launched in 2020, it ran horribly on all the consoles, which is why all the console review copies were withheld, so reviewers only had access to the PC version until launch. The console versions of Cyberpunk 2077 ran so poorly that CD Projekt Red had to offer refunds for both the Xbox and the PlayStation version because the game was just borderline unplayable. There was also a save corruption glitch where you would lose your entire save file, and in a big open world, longer story-driven game like Cyberpunk 2077, can you imagine being like 45 hours into your game only for all of your progress to be instantly wiped because of a buggy bug? Not the most enjoyable experience. The open world and the AI with all the people in the world was buggy. It was kind of a mess. Things didn't react the way they were supposed to. The level system with perks and all that wasn't overly intuitive or interesting, and just kind of left for a bland experience. As I said earlier, Cyberpunk was a game I designed my computer for, but when it first launched, I only streamed it one day before I realized I was just not into it and was severely disappointed, as it was my most anticipated game of 2020. But one DeLorean car ride later, we're in 2023 and Cyberpunk is essentially a whole new game. CD Projekt Red has launched a new DLC called Phantom Liberty, as well as a giant patch 2.0, which completely overhauls the base game to make it what everybody wanted the game to originally be on its original launch. One of the new things that they have brought into the game with patch 2.0 is the new wanted system, which if you've ever played Grand Theft Auto, you're going to recognize this immediately. Let's go steal something. Wait, so do I hide now? If they find me up here, it's bullshit. Yeah, if they find me up here, I'm uninstalling this game. You get, I believe, a 5-star wanted level, and with each star that you have in the wanted level, obviously the more extreme the cops will be, the more aggressive to hunt you down. And the only way to get rid of those wanted levels is to hide, and hopefully the cops won't find you until your wanted level returns to 0. Just like in the real world. Also from Grand Theft Auto, they brought over the car combat system where you can lean out your car with, I believe it's a pistol or like an SMG, and you can fire at other cars, pedestrians, gang members, whatever, while you are driving. Or another new fun thing that's been added is that some vehicles, like one that I found in a warehouse, actually has the guns mounted on the car itself. Hold on, Chad, I gotta take care of something. Okay, what were you saying? One thing I'm having a lot of fun with right now in Cyberpunk is the gunplay. Whereas in Starfield, it kind of feels like it did back in Fallout, which again was fine for the time, but just not for 2023. With Cyberpunk, it feels like there's a lot of mobility involved, a lot of cool different types of guns. There's power guns, there is smart guns that will track an auto aim for you as long as you have a certain cyberware built into your hand. There are tech guns which allow you to charge the shots, and I'm not even getting into the various melee weapons and maybe some secret endgame weapons that I haven't even got to yet. There is just so much versatility to the combat that makes me want to constantly get into another fight instead of just stealthing around. Now, you can take the stealth approach if you want to. You can do a whole perk tree based on stealth if you want to, but I just like the pew-pews. The pew-pews are super fun. Another thing I am building into right now is the hacking system. You can hack computers, you can hack cameras, you can turn enemy turrets against the enemies themselves. You can even do things like hack and set off a car alarm to distract them. You can make their armor explode on them. There's just so many different ways you can approach combat scenarios through full-on aggression or stealth, or even just being a tech-savvy Donatello. One thing I've heard you can even do that I haven't seen myself yet, I think I read this somewhere on the internet verse, is that you can do a melee build with, say, like a samurai sword, dash through the air while swinging your sword, at the same time slowing down time. So you're a slow motion air dashing samurai, which makes, I don't usually use melee weapons in these games, but when I heard about that, it just made me want to go out and find it. And I have samurai swords stuck all in my stash already, because for those who have seen me over on Twitch when I play open world games like this, I will loot any and everything. If I am level 1 and there is a super ultra secret level 99 hidden item somewhere that only the loot goblins of loot goblins will find, guarantee you I will find it without any walkthroughs. I loot everywhere and I hoard everything. One thing that's come to the game with patch 2.0 is that armor is no longer tied to your clothing, meaning you can customize the way your character looks freely without having to sacrifice armor points for something that maybe you don't want to be wearing. So you want to wear something silly? Have at it. You want to be cool and mysterious? Have at it. You want to be full-on cyberpunk? You want to fit into the aesthetics of the world? You have the freedom to do that with zero penalty. You can even customize multiple outfits that you can swap on the fly. You create them in your apartment, and when you're out and about, you can just open up your character menu and swap the outfits that you want. They've really opened up the freedom of customization in this game. Previously, your armor rating was tied to your clothing, but that has since been moved to your cyberware, which opens up a whole new way of customizing your character. So between the perk system and the cyberware system, again, two different ways to add, skills and upgrade your character in various ways. You have so much more freedom to play this game the way that you want. After completing the tutorial missions and being set out in the world, I just wanted to go explore. I get in my car, I drive around, I walk around. I love going down alleyways. I love climbing up on roofs. I just have the desire to explore and find hidden things in this game, like I typically do in all the Bethesda games, which is why I get so sad when I say that Starfield just hasn't done that for me. By the way, if you want to see all of the new things that came to Cyberpunk 2077 with patch 2.0, I have linked to the patch notes in the description down below. CD Projekt Red is also looking to the future with Cyberpunk and is trying to establish it as a franchise going forward. I know a couple years ago they released the anime for the Edge Runner series. I've never seen it, but I've heard really good things about it, and now I'm being told that they are considering another Cyberpunk game, but they haven't decided if it'll be first person like this or third person like The Witcher 3 was. Also, side note, I have not made it to the Phantom Liberty DLC yet, as I'm still playing through the base game. Once I get to the Phantom Liberty DLC, I will probably make another video for it here on YouTube. I have seen some people who absolutely love Starfield and are saying it's their favorite game of the year. And if that's you, that's great. That's the great thing about video games. We can all like and dislike different things. And hopefully when Bethesda's next game come out, or maybe in 3 years when Starfield 2.0 comes out, kind of like Cyberpunk, I'll be changing my tune and singing my praises of Starfield. It is a game I so badly wanted to love. I have probably spent, let me see, we'll say 150 Oblivion, 100. I'm gonna say I have probably spent between 500 and 600 hours in Bethesda games over the years, between Oblivion, Skyrim, Fallout 3, Fallout 4, and to a lesser extent, even Fallout 76. Open world games are some of my favorite games to play, especially over on Twitch. I love streaming open world games where the possibilities are endless and we never know what kind of content we're going to stumble into. And some people do still get that from Starfield, and that's fantastic. So you might want to give it a shot. It is available on Game Pass, so if you're hearing this and you're kind of unsure, maybe get Game Pass for a month and see if it's for you. Some people love it, some people don't. I, unfortunately, in its current state, do not. Now, as I said, I know there are certain mods that will address many issues, but I am basing everything on the base game, not what the community is able to come in and fix themselves. I never thought I would be making a video talking about Cyberpunk and Starfield, but in a time where I was getting ready to balance my playthrough of Baldur's Gate 3 and Starfield has quickly and quietly left that equation, and I am now trying to find the balancing act between Baldur's Gate 3 and Cyberpunk 2077. Cyberpunk just has everything I was hoping Starfield was going to be when it launched last month. And until some major rework or updates, DLC, whatever comes to Starfield to kind of bring it up to the standards of 2023, as of right now, I sadly just cannot get into the game. And I truly wish that was not the case. I'm gonna remain hopeful that Bethesda can maybe turn it around, or maybe they're gonna be switching their focus to Elder Scrolls 6. I know they've already announced DLC is coming for Starfield, so there obviously is still a team working on the game, but I have to expect their main focus is going to switch to Elder Scrolls 6 soon, and I'm hoping for a big update or a big change, because I don't want Elder Scrolls 6 to come out and feel like it's releasing 30 years too late. As much as I loved Oblivion and Skyrim, I don't want Oblivion 2.0. I want a brand fresh new experience in the Elder Scrolls universe that we have never experienced before. So of the two games, if you want my recommendation on what you should play now, my recommendation is going to be Cyberpunk 2077. Again, I haven't even played Phantom Liberty DLC yet, but I've heard nothing but incredible things about the DLC. That's where I'll be spending my time between Baldur's Gate 3 and Cyberpunk over on my Twitch channel for the foreseeable future. Starfield, I hope you have your own Cinderella story. I want to love you. Unfortunately, you're just not there yet. Thanks for watching.